We're out west for the Friday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, focusing on the Western Conference breakdowns that you need to know to stack a little bit of paper. The Minnesota Wild in tough against the Golden Knights, the St. Louis Blues going up against the number 1 Winnipeg Jets. We're breaking it all down for you. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Playoff season has arrived, and before we can flip the page to the next fantasy year, we're breaking it down round by round, series by series, to make sure you've got your finger on the pulse on the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're headed out west to break down our last 2 postseason series, although I guess, Steele, we'll still have to see who faces the Washington Capitals.
Yes,
but
sir.
the truth and the fact remains, Minnesota Wild in tough against the Golden Knights. St. Louis Blues probably could be the same situation. Let's break it all down. X factors, predictions, best bets, strengths, and what is going to go down in these series. Over to you, Mr. Minnesota, Mr. Roden. What do you feel about this situation? Because to me, I see one angle, and it's pretty clear to me.
I know it is. Statistically, this is not in favor of the Minnesota Wild. When you look at the season series, the Golden Knights took all 3 games this year. When you look at the playoff history between these 2 franchises, the Golden Knights defeated the Wild in 7 games back in 2021. So when you look at the overall team from both aspects, there's clearly a cut favorite in this matchup in the Vegas Golden Knights. They have the second ranked power play on the year at 29.1%. Power plays a little different, or penalty kills a little different. 24th ranked penalty kill at 76.1% compared to the Wild at 19th on the power play and 30th on the penalty kill. Now, I don't think those numbers are very indicative of what the power play is capable of, because KAPRIZOV and Joel Eriksson were off the team with injuries for more than half the season. So I think the power play is a lot better than what the numbers project right now. Penalty kill can be very different. Penalty kill can be a struggle and a problem for both teams in this series, as they both struggle on the penalty kill. For me, the X factor and the number 1 guy I'm looking at for the Vegas Golden Knights, it's Jack Eichel. You know how big of a fan I am of Jack Eichel. I think going into this postseason, his 3rd time now with the Vegas Golden Knights, after winning a Stanley Cup with them the first time around, I think there's a really good case and a really good chance that Jack Eichel can establish himself as a top 10 player in the National Hockey League, and maybe even top 5, depending on his performance. Like I said before, to me, this was another breakout season from Jack Eichel and what we saw. 93 points in 76 games, 231 shots. He's a juggernaut on the power play, on special teams. He's so good 5-on-5. He's silky smooth in the offensive zone and creating something out of nothing. So Jack Eichel, to me, is the X factor in this series. If he continues offensive dominance against this Minnesota team, there's no chance this Minnesota team wins. However, for my X factor of the Minnesota Wild, it's got to be Filip Gustavsson. He has to shut the door on Jack Eichel. He has to shut the door on that elite top 6 the Vegas Golden Knights are running right now. He needs to stand tall and win a series. They need to steal this from the Vegas Golden Knights. So for me, X factor for Vegas is Jack Eichel. X factor for the Minnesota Wild is Filip Gustavsson. He's been great this entire year, a .914 save percentage, 31 wins, 19 losses, and 6 overtime losses this year so far. I think he's been outstanding. I know you're a fan of Filip Gustavsson as well. You've drafted it in a few of your different fantasy hockey leagues. And I'll leave my prediction for after your take on this series, but those are my X factors in this first round series.
Thank you for doing 2 things. Number 1, for sticking to your guns about Jack Eichel. I respect it. I see you. And I definitely agree with his game-changing ability to affect the other team's ability to shut down play in the offensive zone. This guy is a wizard with the puck, very strong on the puck and hard to get off it. That this time of year, Steele, That is a trait that you really have to put into the top of the category of things that affect the outcome of games. Number 2, right off the top, I wrote here for the Minnesota Wild in strengths. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Gus, just as good as Adin Hill, in my opinion, and he is going to have to steal 1 or 2 games in this series if there is any chance that the Minnesota Wild get there. Because to me, this is clear cut. The Golden Knights are far too good and too balanced. And X factors for me, this is why I like that you went obvious. I'm going with 2 under the radar, quote unquote, compared to what you spoke about. Thomas Hertl for the Vegas Golden Knights, to me, has a very good opportunity to continue a good season. He had only 6 games played in Vegas last year after his injury and being traded. 4 points in 6 games in the regular season this season. 32 goal steal. Nobody has been talking about that. He has been really good. And if, just like we said with other teams, that top line, the top player, Jack Eichel starts to do his thing and the attention goes there and a guy like Thomas Hertl can go up big, they won't be stopped. However, if you want me to just get into the Minnesota Wild quickly here, they just do not have the firepower to go toe-to-toe with the team this balanced. The blue line is one thing in Vegas, but when I look at the forward group and the lines quickly, before I flip it back to you, this just isn't a playoff winning team, in my opinion. Do they deserve a lot of credit? Are they close? Yes. Are they going to be a team that gets there soon if Billy G continues to make tweaks? I think so. But to me, what's really important, not only for fantasy next year, not only for this team's success moving forward, but for right now, Matt Boldy needs to play like we have seen him play and that he has the skills to do, Steele. Let's be honest. Matt Boldy is also a game-changing piece. So for me, X factor on the Minnesota Wild, Matt Boldy, he makes some noise. Kaprizov is the most dangerous player on the ice. We know this. Even with Jack Eichel, he has more upside, in my opinion, in terms of lethal offensive ability. I'll stop. This is a big opportunity for Matt Boldy to prove himself. Can he do it against the Knights? We will soon see.
It is a big opportunity, and I would also lump Brock Faber in there, who's kind of been quiet for the Wild the last few months, ever since the Four Nations face-off. The thing I would say about this going into this series, are the odds in Minnesota's favor? Clearly not. It's stacked against them right now. But I will say this: I believe the Minnesota Wild have been overlooked the entire season. And I say that because when you get back Kirill Kaprizov, and when you look at when he was in the lineup at the beginning of the season, the Minnesota Wild were a top 3 team, some cases even top 2 in the Central Division back for the first 2-3 months. They lose a sandpaper guy like Joel Eriksson-Ek for half the season as well. Like I said many times, all they had to do was tread water until they got healthy. They're practically fully healthy at this point. I think they're getting overlooked. I'm backing with my boys here. This is a year for history to be broken.
Whoa.
They haven't won a series since 2015. They are one of those teams like the Leafs, like the Hurricanes, like the Jets, who just can't seem to get out of the first round for all their life. This is a year for history to be broken. I said it with Rory McIlroy. I'm feeling it with the Leafs, and I'm feeling the Wild finally getting over the hump. This is an upset for me. Wild in 7 is my prediction for this series.
This is spicy.
It is very spicy. Like I said, it's all stacked against us right now. But like you just said, the best offensive weapon in Kaprizov, he was on pace for over 110 points this year.
I'm not going to disagree with you. Someone other than Kaprizov has to be a difference maker offensively, and then I'm going to read into what you're saying. I'm going to disagree wholeheartedly in terms of your prediction, though. The Vegas Golden Knights had the second best power play, and Minnie had the second worst penalty kill. I don't see that changing over the next couple of days and into this series. Problem. And that could be a quick undoing of this Minnesota Wild team. So, Knights in 5, Vegas to win the series. First game and the series is paying a very nice -110. I say Vegas takes game 1. I say they take the series. And overall, easy money, Vegas to win, -230. Jump on that before it gets worse. Look, I hear you. It's the postseason. I just don't see it. However, I do see a juicy situation for the St. Louis Blues on the line coming up after the break. Don't miss it. We'll be here all week continuing the breakdowns. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time, and update Amazon Fire TV right now and tap into their latest edition. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV 4K stick devices. No console needed. Grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed, Steel's favorite game, Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. Gaming is made simple now on Fire TV. Tap into it today. Steel's on Avowed basically every single night. Head to Amazon.com/fire, locked on, and get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription compatible, controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Check it out today.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen Monday through Friday. Make sure you're staying tuned in for the Saturday special where Flip's going to go karaoke, bringing the oldies grills for us on the weekend.
Paul Wall, baby. Paul Wall.
Hit that subscribe button, hit the smash button. We love all the support we get from all our listeners out there. So thank you so much. We're going to get to the Jets and Blues very, very soon, but I want to wrap up on the Minnesota Wild because you made a really good point about the penalty kill. That is the big pain point going into this series. If the Wild, and I'm specifically looking at a guy like Ryan Hartman, if they can really contain themselves, make sure they're playing some clean hockey and they're not taking some really bad penalties, there's no way around it. The penalty kill sucks for the Minnesota Wild. It's plain and simple, just like that. If they can stay out of the box, I really do think this is a team that even if they're getting outplayed, out-hit, outshot, they stick around and they're always on your heels. So they're always in it for me. That's why they're the underdog, and that's why it's my series best bet. Wild to win the series at plus 190. They're an underdog for a reason. Look, there's no way around it, but I'm going with the gut feeling. I'm going with my team here. Vegas, Minnesota. Can't wait for the first round, for the first game. Jets and Blues, though. Let's get to that. I got
Knights in 5, by the way, just to be clear.
Sorry.
Just want to say
Knights
it again.
in 5. All right, we're not on the same page here. Definitely a side bet. We're going to have to cook some after the episode. Jets and Blues, though. Season series, 3-1 in favor of the Winnipeg Jets. In the most recent playoff history was back in 2019, and we all know what happened there. The Blues went on to win an absolute crazy run, winning the Stanley Cup championship. Yes. They beat the Jets in the first round back in 2019. However, Jets, best ranked power play at 29.4%, 15th ranked penalty kill at 79.3%. And then you have the Blues, who are outside the top 15 on both special teams, 18th best power play, 27th ranked penalty kill. I mean, this has to be the Jets' year. They win the President's Trophy. They're the top team in the league. Everything's been going right for them. But again, when the playoffs come around, they just seem to choke it somehow. What do you feel? Because I know at the beginning of the season, there was a question mark. How do you feel about the Jets and the Blues in the first round?
I guess I don't want to detract from a really good season from the Winnipeg Jets. I really don't. And obviously, Connor Hellebuyck has been a key source of that success. Mark Scheifele was red hot to start the year. We've talked about Kyle Connor at length. You know how I feel about Cole Perfetti, all of that. I guess what I just want to say is this is sports, right? And, Monty went in there behind the bench and, Jim Montgomery has totally reinvigorated this team. That's a coach. He's not on the ice. But this St. Louis Blues team has been the hottest in the NHL for the last 4 to 6 weeks. They have that going for them. I actually really like their top 4 D pairing. Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, and Justin Falk, I don't think get nearly enough love. And when I look at Dylan Sandberg, Neil Pionk, DeMello, and Josh Morrissey, I know Morrissey is like the standout of that group, but I don't see a whole ton of difference in terms of like reliability and my, doubt or confidence in a group winning games. So let me spit it out, I guess, because I'm struggling now. The blue line is solid. St. Louis for me. arguably the best goalie on the planet in Connor Hellebuyck, and the Jets have the top power play unit in the NHL. I'll hit you with this. Josh Morrissey is going to need to step up offensively and produce on the power play. Nikolai Ehlers is out still. That's an injury that could really put some pressure on the secondary scoring on this team, and same with the Blues that you and I talked about off air. Very soft for both teams. So, X factor for the Jets. Josh Morrissey had 22 power play points in 60 out of his 61 points this year. X factor for me, Josh Morrissey and the Jets power play. They have to continue to be good because we also know Jordan Binnington is a big game goalie and he can come out of nowhere on a heater.
I'll talk about Binnington soon, but for me, the Jets, I like Josh Morrissey as an X factor. For me, it's got to be Connor Hellebuyck.
Sure.
When I look at what he's done in the regular season, again, that's a cop-out answer. That's the easy way to go, but it has to be Connor Hellebuyck for me. When you look at what he does in the regular season compared to what he's done in the playoffs throughout his career, things just don't line up properly. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially over the last 2 seasons in the playoffs for him. And I'm sick and tired of him being a regular season wonder. I want him to be a wonderful goaltender in the postseason and potentially lead the Jets to a Western Conference Finals or a Stanley Cup Finals. And that just hasn't been the case, especially over the last 2 years. Like I mentioned a few episodes ago, an .864 save percentage. He's only gotten out of the first round twice in his career. I really think this is a big year for the Jets, especially after re-signing Mark Scheifele. They're going to be without Nikolai Ehlers, at least for the first 2 or 3 games, as he's out week to week right now.
It sounds like it could be worse still as well, from what I read. It could be
worse too, but even with him out, the top 6 has just been absolutely incredible. Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, 30-plus goal scorers. Your boy Cole Perfetti, a little bit more consistent halfway through the season. For me, it's Connor Hellebuyck. Over to the St. Louis Blues. I really like you shining a light on the blue line, because I don't think guys like Parayko get enough credit for what they do in the defensive zone in front of the net.
Agreed.
A guy like Van Fowler, who's kind of stepped up the last month or so offensively. Philip Broberg, an offer sheet guy who's been incredible, having a career year. I'm going back to my boy. It's got to be my boy Robert Thomas in this situation.
Good for you.
Another career year for him. Back-to-back 80-plus points. He's a wizard with the puck. He's so creative in the offensive zone. He can thread a needle like there's no tomorrow, like it's almost impossible. And when you look at his game, and I've said it so many times in the past, that if he starts shooting the puck a lot more, he's a 30-plus, 35-plus goal scorer. Back-to-back seasons of 20-plus goals, but he barely reaches 150 shots this year. His career high was 170 last season.
Same old.
But the playmaking stands out alone by itself. Another 60-plus assist season for himself. He's great in the face-off circle as well, 55% on the year for Robert Thomas. He's been in the playoffs a few times as well. Again, won a Stanley Cup in 2019 with this team. Hasn't stood out offensively in the playoffs, and I think this is a year where he has that experience. He's coming into the playoffs as one of the hottest players from the Four Nations faceoff break, and he can just continue that momentum into this challenging series against the Jets. So it's Connor Hellebuyck from the Jets. It's Robert Thomas from the Blues.
I like it. My X factor is Binnington. We've spoken about it. That's maybe a cop-out answer as well. In his career against the Winnipeg Jets in the regular season steal, this man is 3-7-1. He's had his struggles against the Winnipeg Jets, and I think that's something that maybe should be, if you're trying to get some value on the St. Louis Blues, just remember that this guy has had a bit of a time stopping pucks against this team. However, it's regular season, and in the postseason, a .910 save percentage is a number that you can have confidence in a goaltender making big saves. We know he can do that. Can he do it against a team that is clearly should deserve the edge as favorites? Let's see what happens. I got 2 more angles I want to talk about. I got bets, our predictions. Let's get there right after the break.
After the break, indeed, all the bets throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until we found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front, no surprises at checkout. Here's why we love using Game Time. The last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And once again, thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button, the follow button, tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod, making it your first Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Blues, Jets, we've mentioned our X factors. Let's get to the best series bets and our predictions for this matchup. Over to you, my friend. How you feeling?
St. Louis is red hot. They've played great hockey,
Yes.
No doubt. They still remain outmatched for the most part at every single position. Special teams for sure. Goals for, goals against. The Jets have kind of been a little bit of a team that you could throw the choke title at. Buck has seen too many pucks, and that has been something that has played into their downfall. The Jets have allowed the least goals against this season, scored the third most. They're a lead on the power play. Those are too many angles for me to ignore, and I've said far too much this season that the St. Louis Blues are far too average in their bottom six, and that's not saying a whole ton against the Jets in terms of their bottom six. I think this is going to be a battle. So, series bet that I love, games over 5.5, love it. I actually think, too, considering the pressure on the Jets, President's Trophy, Connor Hellebuyck Vezina, big years from Mark Scheifele, number one in the league for most of the year. Blues take game one for the juice steal. That's my second favorite pick. However, Jets in 7. I see a battle, but I see the better team winning out at the end. I almost went Jets in 6, but I think if the Blues get game one, the cage might be a little bit rattled, but I see Buck pulling it out. He's too good. They can't keep losing in these fashions that they have, but I think the Blues keep it close. Tell me if I'm crazy or not.
No, they really do have to win this series, and I think it's going to be close as well. However, I am going Jets in 6, and that is also my best bet. Jets in 6 at plus 380, picking the correct score here, 4-2 in the Jets' favor. Yeah, I just, they might not make a deep playoff run, but the angles that you just laid out for us, the power play, top goaltender, Vezina, the eliteness, goal scoring,
too many good things,
and Kyle Connor. There's too many good things in favor of the Jets. Blues, hottest team right now. They're going to make it difficult on them no matter what. Hey, it happened in 2019. The Blues are looking for a repeat from that absolutely insane run.
Craig Berube magic?
Craig Berube magic. That's happening for the Leafs this year. That's happening for the Leafs. Real quick before we wrap up. Do you think the Washington Capitals are concerned at all whether they face the Montreal Canadiens or the Columbus Blue Jackets? Because I think they're absolutely laughing right now as they sit and wait to see who they play.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to talk about it. I look, the Caps have played bad down the stretch. Let's be for real. And they've overachieved this season. Yeah, we like the additions, but no one thought they'd be this good. The chase for a big goal number like that, 2 steal, can really send a lot of good positive vibes through a team, especially on those nights that are like letdowns. At the end of the season against the Chicago Blackhawks a couple of games ago when he scored 2 and tied the record, that's a huge letdown game any other year that he's not chasing that record. So this has really influenced this team in a big way. And now that record chase is over, he's got it. And now the postseason is here. I would say if I'm the Washington Capitals, I don't get overly confident. The Habs are a good young team. Blue Jackets are surging. Are they still the favorites? Do they still have the better team on paper against both those clubs? Yeah. But I think you and I are going to have to talk about this in a little bit more depth.
We'll break down the full matchup series when we find out who the Capitals are playing. We'll get that episode out over the weekend. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen. Once again, for your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate you. We love you out there for tuning in. We wish you good luck with all those bets, your favorite teams heading into the playoffs, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Go Leafs, go.